Eyes on the word stress today. Yes, stress. You heard it correctly. I bet you have experienced this more than once in your life, and maybe you are stressing about something today. In this lesson, you will see how stress directly relates to a person's overall well being and how it can directly take a toll on a person's psyche. Aside from knowing the effects of stress to the body, you will learn what exactly it is you need to do in order for you to compose yourself and manage your stress levels. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify what stress is and determine from which sources they exactly come from. Second is to determine the body's general adaptations and reactions to certain or numerous stressors internally and externally. Third is to discover preventive measures to take in dealing with life stressors and some stress management activities that would contribute to wellness. Fourth is to associate exercise as an integral part of stress management. Fifth is to develop activities that would inhibit coping to different types of stressors. Sixth is to share personal stress management coping techniques through a short essay. And lastly is that students should be able to understand the roles and importance of social support and proper stress management to achieve a life of health and wellness. I know it's a bit too much to take in, but I hope you will find it interesting, and this lesson would be an eye-opener for you to identify some of the stressors you experience in your life. For this lesson, you will learn about the following topics. First is the definition of stress and stressors. You will have an idea which type of stressors you are facing in your life, whether they are considered as a eustress or a distress. Second is the several reactions to stress, the way you respond to a particular stressor or several stressors in your life. Third is where do these stressors come from? Which ones are considered as stressors in your lives and which ones are not? You will probably discover that some of the things that you're thinking about are mere products of your mindset. Fourth, and probably the most important learning you can get from today, is the effect of stress to the body and how it responds to acute or chronic stress. Under this part of the lesson are factors that can contribute highly to stress. Learning about the different stress response to your body can effectively help you prevent them from further happening into your life. After knowing where stressors come from and its effects to the body, I am hoping that this lesson will equip you with enough knowledge on how to cope with stress. You can learn this by identifying the right time management which would perfectly suit your schedule. I also hope to equip you with enough knowledge on the different coping strategies that people do when in distress. This is for you to have an idea which one are you doing whenever you are faced with stressful situations. Aside from learning some of these techniques, we will also try to explore the importance of peers and other people to support and help you in your coping strategies for stress. Lastly, this lesson highly aims for you to discover how exercise can play a huge role in stress management. I know it seems a bit long, but I hope that this lesson will be very informative and can highly help you in identifying your stressors and how to manage them. This is because physical fitness not only entails a sound body, but it is also linked to how well the mind works. At the end of the lesson, prepare for a short 5-item multiple choice easy quiz or a 10-item true or false hard quiz. Before we begin, I want you to do this activity with me. Sit up straight on your chair and take a deep breath. As you inhale, hold your chest and belly. Feel your chest and stomach rising. Now, hold that breath for 10 to 15 seconds. Then, make a loud ah sound. Do this 5 consecutive times. Inhale deep, hold your breath, and exhale with a loud ah sound. How did it feel? A bit relaxed now? Maybe you are in a state of relaxation already. Or maybe for some, you needed to do the sequence over and over again because you can't complete a cycle. Breath is important in every aspect of a person's life. Simply inhaling and exhaling for 10 continuous cycles would gradually lower your heart rate and give you a more pleasant feeling. Yogis practice this in their journey to awakening, and they take in prana, or the breath of life, in, and they exhale bad energy through their mouths. For me, breathing properly is the key to managing stress. How about you? What steps do you take when you are under stressful situations? Do you practice pausing or stopping everything when it seems like everything is falling apart? I'll leave you with prana, and I bid you good vibrations as we begin this lesson. Did you know that about 50 to 70% of all illnesses have already been related to stress? Yes, you heard me correctly. Most people who are sick or about to get sick are probably stressed out at some point in their own personal lives. Stress is a very serious psychosomatic condition that is directly linked to physical conditions like high blood pressure, heart diseases, and psychiatric disorders such as depression and schizophrenia. It affects nearly everyone at certain degrees, and there's actually no way of removing it from the hustles and bustles of life. You cannot escape from stress because of the tremendous amount of demands that can be found from society. Therefore, stress management is now viewed as a priority in lifestyle, which is about the same weight as doing regular physical activity and maintaining a healthy diet. All people have a similar general reaction to stress. Yes, I repeat, all people have a similar general reaction to stress. Whether you are young or old, male or female, or whichever group you belong to, everyone's stress response is the same. But what is stress anyway? How can you say that something is stressful? What does it really mean when we say the word stress? Science actually defines stress as the non-specific response of the body to any demand made upon it in order to maintain physiological equilibrium or balance. This positive or negative response results from several emotions that are accompanied by biochemical and physiological changes. These physical changes are almost always directed to adaptation or survival. Basically, when the body is exposed to several stressors, its general reaction is to protect itself and place it in survival mode. Much like this rope in the picture, when constant loading is placed on one or both sides of this rope, its tendency is to eventually break and fall apart. Just like people, we all have breaking points, depending on the amount of stressors we are exposed to. But what are stressors anyway? Stressors are anything that places a greater than routine demand on the body or something that evokes a stress reaction. What you don't normally do becomes normal when you have been placed in a very stressful situation. Ever heard of the phrase fight or flight? This is the general reaction of the autonomic nervous system of our bodies when we are presented with a specific stressor. Autonomic meaning something automatic or something that naturally occurs. Sometimes, these reactions may be essential to survival. Just like in this example, a person is faced with danger and he can either fight back or just choose to run away. He actually ended up choosing the latter to save himself from further getting into a bigger trouble. The reaction of the autonomic nervous system, when evoked inappropriately or excessively, may actually become more harmful than the effects of the original stressor themselves. It is not the stressor that is dangerous, but rather The reaction of the person to the stressor determines the overall effect of stress to the body, physically and mentally. What are you currently stressing about? Have you done something about it, or you have just been continuously finding yourself running away from the problem? Actually, not all stressors are considered to be bad and can affect you. Stressors can be classified into two, and these are eustress and distress. Eustress refers to positive stress or stress that is mentally or physically stimulating. A very good example of this is when you are setting goals for yourself. Goal setting, specifically in fitness, can bring about excitement and thrill. Eustress is anything that gives you a euphoric state or a state of fullness. It is something that makes you feel good and happy about a particular situation. Eustress may last for a long time, especially when you are at the highest point in your life. While distress is the negative type of stress that may contribute to health problems. These are the ones that make you feel the opposite about yourself. This is the type of stress that brings you into a negative physical and mental state. Often, people who are exposed to too much distress lack the motivation to push on with what they're doing. Why do you need to learn about these two things? It's because stress levels, just like all aspects in your life, need to be balanced out. Think of it as a balancing equation. Too little distress will make your body and mind rust out because you are not challenged by anything. In the end, you experience a feeling of boredom or apathy. While too much of distress can give you a feeling of being burnt out. At this point, you are officially tired and you want to get out of everything you're doing. The best way to go is to always achieve an optimal level of eustress. This is because it brings about homeostatic conditions within the body. When you are balanced, you tend to become more energetic, you feel successful in everything you do, and you have a positive mindset. Now, I mentioned the word homeostatic a while back, but what does homeostatic or homeostasis mean? Homeostasis refers to the physiological state that the body should always aim to achieve. It is where the body is stable or in an equilibrium. This means that you are free from any form of ailments or diseases. Homeostasis is what fitness hopes and aims to achieve, and we will explore more on this in the later parts of this lesson. As I've mentioned earlier in the lesson, all people have the same reaction to any form of stress presented to them, whether it be the simplest or the most complex forms of stressors. We share this common trait in whatever age we are in, wherever we are, and whatever positive or negative situations we find ourselves in. The general reaction of everyone to stress is known as the General Adaptation Syndrome, or GAS for short. GAS is actually composed of three sequential events, and these are alarm reaction, resistance, and eventually leading to exhaustion. What are they, and how would you know which phase are you currently in when faced with stressors? Alarm reaction is the first stage of GAS. This actually refers to any physical or mental trauma that will trigger an immediate set of reactions for your body to combat stress. Remember when you first did the agility drill called planting rice or suicide drills? The moment that you went down to touch the ground and did the first cycle of the activity, did you wish to quit? This is the first reaction of the body to combat the stressor placed upon it. It will always find a way on how to trigger the brain to stop or finish the activity it is doing to protect itself. And this phenomenon is known as alarm reaction. The second stage of GAS is resistance. At some point during the suicide drills, did you finally learn how to catch your breath and you were able to overcome the stress? This is what the second stage of GAS means. Eventually, sometimes rather quickly, we adapt to stress and we actually have a tendency to become more resistant to fatigue. Sometimes, even in cases when we are faced with illnesses and diseases, our bodies also resist the infection or bacteria through our immune system. The resistance stage of stress is a very common phenomenon in exercise. This is especially noticeable when you are a beginner exercise enthusiast and you get hooked with the activity you are doing. You get a certain chemical reaction in your body, signaling your brain to keep on taking the stressors and doing the load. Then, you eventually find yourself accomplishing more than what you expected. Is it normal? Yes, this stage is definitely normal. It is the body's amazing way of adapting to the demands placed upon it at certain periods in time. At some point in our reaction to stress, we may be able to experience exhaustion. In exercise, when this happens, the mind becomes very willing to move, but the body is resisting the urge to do so. Exhaustion is the last stage of gas, and it's quite a very serious stress response of the body. During this stage, it is very hard to get back on track and get your focus all over again, because you have already expended so much energy and nothing is left as a reserve. During this stage, the body experiences a drop in its resistance level because it can no longer maintain its homeostasis. You now become prone to many diseases and you experience the lack of empathy for everything going on around you. In sports, some athletes push themselves to the brink of their breaking points, that they experience a feeling of excessive tiredness. You do not need to do this, and you do not need to experience this. Learning about how the body responds to stress is the start in being more aware on how you should handle your training routines. If you always go beyond what you can do and you keep pushing yourself to the limit, you might end up hurting yourself totally. Though we all experience gas or the general adaptation syndrome at some point in our lives, people still may respond to the gravity of stress differently. What one person finds stressful may not be stressful to another. This is partly due to inherited predispositions we have, and this could also be partly due to our unique histories of experiencing and coping with stress. Once you already recognize these individual differences we have, it can automatically help you create unique ways on how you react when you get bombarded with stress. How do you cope with stress? I personally cope with stress by doing yoga and breathing exercises because it stops my brain from overthinking and it brings me in a relaxed state. How about you? What do you do when you are under pressure? Knowing your own optimal level of arousal can help you manage stress more effectively to help you have an optimized health and wellness. Most of the time, your mindset takes a huge chunk in your dealings with stress. Just like this glass. How do you see it? A pessimist sees it as half empty, while an optimist sees it as half full. A pessimist always finds time to complain and make things more difficult for himself. But an optimist always finds opportunities within his difficulties. Which one are you? You know already that stressors may take different forms and that specific mindsets can change your outlook or make you think the same way. But where do these stressors come from and how do you identify them? The first step in actually managing stress is to recognize the cause of it and to be aware of its symptoms. Once you know where these stressors come from and their triggers, you can now be more aware about your situation in case you are specifically faced with them. Identifying where exactly you are stressed out is the best way to managing your stress levels and in controlling your temper. This way, you are not only helping yourself but also the people around you. Ask yourself this question: where is it coming from? Where did these stressors sprung from? How did this situation jump onto my lap all of a sudden? At times like this that you ask, you become honest with yourself and you create a more harmonious relationship with who you are. This is because you are willing to accept and become aware of the dealings that you need to face. Being in a constant lookout with your stressors, can you be more genuinely happy and contented about where you are? It will also be easier for you to become positive and stay in that state for a long period of time. When you know where the problem is coming from, you will be able to avoid stress overload. This is a condition in which there are too many stressors in your life. Stress overload would lead to high demands on your time and also that feeling of not being in control of things. Stress overload is something that you should definitely aim to avoid. Remember the graph of eustress and distress? Stress overload is about having too much distress in your life that you no longer know what to do with it. It would become easier for you to avoid this from happening if you know how to identify your stressors. Some common stressors are known as environmental, physiological, and emotional stressors. What are they and how can you point your fingers on each? The first kind of stressor that may cause distress is known as environmental stressors. These stressors are found within your immediate surroundings. You cannot escape from them because it is basically anything that you find around you. Heat, noise, overcrowding, climate, and terrain are some of the things that are composed of environmental stresses. There's no way of getting out of this unless you live in the moon. Environmental stressors are everywhere. That heavy traffic you caught yourself into is still the same heavy traffic that might face you in the coming days. That noisy and busy street where your house is located at is still the same house where you are going to go home to. That excessively cold or excessively hot climate you're experiencing will be there no matter how hard you try to get out of it. So my questions now are, why stress about it? Why stress about something that is obvious? Why spend so much energy in complaining about these things? Is it worth it? The only way to get yourself out of these environmental stressors is to learn how to accept them. Day by day, accept that traffic, accept that noisy house location you have, and accept that climate. You are giving away your composure and your overall power when you get stressed out by these things. The more that you spend your energy thinking and complaining about it, the more that you lose control of your situation. So, just learn to accept, move forward, and think of better things. The second source of stress is known as physiological stressors. These are stressors that your body physically experiences. Consistently exposing yourself to illegal drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and other forms of substances are very serious examples of physiological stress. Your body does not need these things. Could you just imagine the amount of stress you are putting it into? It is battling these substances for it to be able to adapt to what you are putting in it. This places great stress within several processes that should be normally occurring in your body. Hence, bringing your immune system to become less efficient, leading you to experience different illnesses or diseases. Fighting off an infection or disease is the worst form of this physiological stressor. Being under heavy medications for a period of time can also be considered as a physiological stressor. Anything that creates an imbalance in your body's homeostasis is considered as a physiological stressor. Exercising can also be a source of physiological stress, especially when you are not used to movement and doing regular physical activities. But, in reality, exercise is actually considered as a eustress that brings about positive instead of negative physiological benefits. The third and last identifiable stressor is known as emotional stressors or psychosocial stressors. These types of stressors are the most frequent and important stressors that affect all of us. Often, this type of stressor is the most dragging of all types of stressors. When you are constantly bombarded by thoughts that are too negative, it's hard to physically move your body and think of the next step to do. Emotional stressors are very serious, and the need to address them the soonest time possible is the best manageable way on how to prevent other types of stressors to come into your life. Emotional stressors are most of the time brought about by troubling thoughts. Thoughts that should not be welcomed and further entertained in the mind. When you are experiencing emotional stressors, try practicing the breathing exercise we did a while ago. Just find a quiet place where you can sit comfortably and empty your mind while doing deep, controlled breaths. Now you know all three different stressors. It should be easier for you to identify them whenever the situation comes up. This way, your stress can be more manageable and you would continue living a life of positivity. The best way to go manage these things is through acceptance. Acceptance that all three types of stressors are present every single day of our lives. We cannot escape them, and it is something inevitable. Sometimes, the only thing we need to do to manage these stressors is to find the time to pause and be quiet. This way, we calm ourselves and prepare it to be ready for the next new and exciting challenges of life. Knowing the different kinds of stressors and where they come from is still not enough knowledge to help you manage them. It would also be very beneficial for you to know its severity. What are you stressing about right at this moment? How good or badly does it make you feel? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most stressed out, which side of the spectrum are you in right now? Stressors may actually vary in their severity, and sometimes, with the acceptance of it, comes a more optimistic outlook in life. There are two ways on how you can identify the severity of your stress levels, and these are known as major or minor stressors. When you know what you are dealing with, you can be able to adjust yourself to the changes that are presented to you. What are major and minor stressors anyway? Major stressors are those that create major turmoil. They require tremendous amounts of adjustments. These things can directly affect your daily patterns and routines. Major stressors can actually impair your ability to handle the minor stressors or hassles of life. These stressors include personal crisis, major health problems, death in the family, separation, financial problems, legal problems, and job or school-related pressures. Anything that distracts and disturbs your regular habits and patterns are considered as major stressors. They can be crippling at the start, but eventually, through some adjustments, you can be able to get past them. While the less severe form of stressors are known as minor stressors. These stressors are generally viewed as something that occurs in a shorter term or in a less severe gravity compared to major stressors. Some examples of minor stressors include traffic hassles, peer or work relations, time pressures, and sometimes petty family arguments. Unlike major stressors that may cause severe disruptions in your daily routine, minor stressors only take little time to solve or to deal with. But don't get me wrong when I say that they are just simple forms of stressors. Eventually, these little stressors of life can accumulate and become major stressors that are even harder to manage. So, as soon as a problem comes to you, you need to solve it quickly rather than run away from it. Minor or major problems they may be, getting away from the problem does not solve it at all, and you are only making it worse not only for yourself but also for the people around you. Here are other factors that can give your life distress. First is your current age. The nature and magnitude of stressors you experience change during your lifespan. The problems you had when you were a little kid is totally different from the problems you now face in your early adulthood, and it will also change as you reach your late adulthood stage. Just like everything in life, stressors altogether evolve, depending on your age and what you're currently experiencing. As it changes, one thing is consistent. the presence of stress remains. Second factor that can contribute greatly to your stress are financial problems, schoolwork, and job-related activities. These things are what we usually work for. They may make us feel like we have a sense of purpose, but at times they also make us feel the opposite. Facing major problems in this area of your life could be very stressful and at times could even make you feel like giving up. Lastly, the most severe form of stress would probably events that are too negative, ambiguous, and uncontrollable, such as experiencing a death of a loved one, being evicted, or having your house burned to the ground. These are all probably the hardest and most stressful forms of situations. You might not have experienced it, but these stressors usually come out of nowhere, and it is hard to find the strength to keep on going because of the physical, emotional, and mental trauma it brings. When you are faced with these kinds of stressors, you definitely need a very high level of adjustment and tolerance in order for you to keep on. But all these things are there already, and here I am telling you, and I hope you take my advice, that you should not stress on the stressful things anymore. They are there already. The only thing you can do is to think of what's next and what is there to do to solve the problem. The more that you think about the problem and you don't do something about it, it will just remain inside your head as negative thoughts. Thoughts that would accumulate and probably cause you illness or disease. Let it go and work your way out of it. Now you know where stressors can possibly come from. Let us now take a look on how it can affect your overall health. Remember the statistics I gave you at the start of this lesson? Approximately 50 to 70% of illnesses are caused by excessive distress. Chronic or repetitive acute stress can cause or worsen a variety of health problems. Stress has been actually linked to chronic health maladies that plague individuals on a daily basis. Maladies such as headaches, indigestion, insomnia, and common colds. Yes, all these things are hard facts. Even illnesses with a substantial genetic component such as cardiovascular diseases and depression have been linked to stress. Exposure to this stress for a prolonged period may greatly impact health outcomes that could become irreversible through time. In this part of the lesson, we will explore some of the possible health effects that this stress can bring to a person's overall health, fitness, and wellness. Here are the subtopics of this part of the lesson. First is that we will explore the physical effects of de-stress to the body, how excessive and prolonged exposure to it could directly affect many functions within the body's several organ systems. Second is that stress can actually cause mental and emotional effects to the body that may eventually become permanent or haunting to a person in constant distress. Third is that we will explore how stress can affect a person's overall behavior, behaviors that are most of the time left unnoticed by a person who is stressed out. Lastly, we will explore how this stress can affect the body's immune system, the organ system responsible for fighting off diseases and infections. Let's begin with the physical effects of stress to the body. Excessively exposing yourself to this stress may have a direct effect to the function of your heart. Constantly being under stressful situations could increase your heart rate and blood pressure. This is mostly the reason why some people who have experienced heart attack are advised not to stress themselves out because of the direct effect it has to the heart. Headaches, indigestion, stomach cramps, muscle spasms, and muscle pains are all chronic illnesses that are directly linked to excessive stress. Aside from the external stressor that you are experiencing, these kinds of physical problems can also become an additional stressor. Imagine a stress sandwich. The stressors are the buns, and you are squeezed tightly in the middle. Your body can hold it for a period of time, but eventually It will give up and you'll experience fatigue. What is fatigue? Have you come to experience this at some point in your life? Fatigue is a symptom of chronic stress which directly results from the lack of sleep, emotional strain, pain, disease, or combination of all these factors. Once you are already in this stage of distress, your body will experience a slow deterioration. You will lack the enough strength to keep on with your work and you might even experience depression. Bottom line is, don't let fatigue set in, because once it does, you'll have a harder time getting back on track. Stress can both affect the mental and emotional stature of your body. This is a normal response of the body to the overload you are putting it in. The common emotional response of the body to stress is the experience of anxiety. This feeling is characterized as having a feeling of apprehension. When you are anxious, you expend a lot of nervous energy. Basically, energy that is wasted. Something that you don't need and can only cause you serious muscular tension and fatigue. Consider this. If you are anxious most days, do you think people around you would want to spend time with you? This emotional turmoil you're experiencing puts you in a situation that will eventually bring you into isolation. Anxiety can lead to other health-related diseases that in turn would affect other organ systems of the body. Another form of mental and emotional distress is known as PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. This is very common in people who have been in accidents like a car crash or a bad fall. This could also happen to people who have been exposed to an environment of violence and tragedy. PTSD is where the situation goes back and the person re-experiences the same feeling through a flashback or sometimes even series of flashbacks. PTSD is very serious and can lead to the road of depression. If you have experienced this, I personally suggest that you get the help of a trained professional to help you process the event. Having constant flashbacks can also become a new stressor for your life, and it could further affect your daily functions. Third factor that distress can bring to you is the change in your behavioral patterns. You may develop fixations like biting your nails, that you may be doing consciously or unconsciously, and others may have caught you in the act. Other behavioral changes include a change in your eating habits. You might find yourself either eating too much or eating too little. This is a sign of distress that you should watch out for, as this could also be directly linked to little physical activity and other health-related diseases. Some people also find it hard to catch the right amount of sleep because most stressful situations tend to haunt them at night, while others who have been in the distress zone would eventually find themselves having a reduced outlook on life's positivity. Destructive behavioral changes like drug, tobacco, and alcohol abuse may also become a fixation to help numb the feeling and forget the problem temporarily. Did you notice that when you are stressed out, you become irritable and short-tempered? You easily get ticked off by the smallest of things and you can't seem to control how you feel. These can become destructive in the long run and will not only affect you, but also those people who are in your immediate surroundings. Have you been under so much distress lately that you experience these kinds of things? I hope these signs could tell you to slow down and take a breather. Last factor that excess distress can bring you is the overall effect it has on the immune system. Excessive stress reduces the effectiveness of your immune system. This is the body's natural shield when infection or disease invades it. Your thymus, spleen, lymph nodes, and antibodies are parts of your immune system that work together to combat or fight off bacterial infections. These things are also responsible in filtering the toxins within your body, helping you to recover from taking in certain medical treatments. If you expose and let yourself be stressed out, your immune system functions are altered. This results to your susceptibility to bacteria and allergens. Allergens in particular are the ones that cause several forms of allergies and asthma attacks. Under a lot of stress, periods of these conditions will happen more often and will become more severe. All these things can lead to a life that is unhealthy and full of negativity. Do you want this for yourself until you get old and leave this plane? Here's a fact that you need to know about stressors. Stressors by themselves generally do not cause problems unless they are perceived or appraised as stressful. The more that you recognize the problem and the more you perceive it to be stressful, the more that it will become a source of your unhappiness and discontentment. The best way to go is to always maintain an optimistic view of things, even if you find yourself under stressful situations. Remember the glass metaphor a while back? Are you half full or half empty most days? Cliché it may sound, but this is the only way to minimize the effect of stress in your lifestyle. Worrying too much is something that you should learn how to take out of your book. Day in and day out, find something to de-stress your life. Find a book to read, maybe go watch a movie or go for a long walk. Stressors are around us. As I've mentioned earlier, it is an inevitable part of life. And the only way we can get through it is to face our problems head on and fix them. Now that you know where your stressors might be coming from, it's time to explore how you can manage them and how you can live a life that is more meaningful and positive. Often, people who feel generally stressed out are the ones who don't have a timetable with them. In this part of the lesson, we will try to explore how important time management is and how setting a proper timetable is helpful for your everyday tasks, leading you into a less stressful environment. We will also try to explore the importance of free time, recreation, leisure, and play in battling the stressors of life, and some activities that you can possibly do to de-stress yourself. I hope to give you a variety of activities in which you can explore once this course is finished. Ever felt like you are running out of time? Or time is always rushing towards your direction? Most days, you hear people say they're late for work, they're rushing through time, or there isn't enough time to finish things. Or maybe you have heard yourself saying these things countless times in your life. It is a fact that you may never find the time to do all of the things you want to do, and that 24 hours is the only limit you have to accomplish tasks. But despite this, it is also a fact that you can learn how to manage your time more effectively to help you cope with the stressors of life. Effective time management aids in adapting to the stresses of modern living. If you know how to put your priorities into the boxes of time, then you would have a less stressful or stress-free environment for yourself. There are actually steps to take for you to begin your journey in mastering the art of time management, and I hope you'll pick some along the way and incorporate it in your life. First step is to prioritize. You need to establish priorities in your life in order for you to have a worry-free state of mind. Ask yourself this today: what do I value most in my life? What do you need to put at the top of your priority list for you to be able to have a set goal or a mindset for yourself at the moment? When things are too much to handle on my plate, I personally put into priority the hard and complicated tasks before the small and easy ones. I write them down on paper. Step by step, my confusion vanishes into thin air because I've already chosen what to do first. Usually, I write my priorities down on a green or orange paper, and then I do them one at a time. Studies have shown that these colors are effective in helping us associate and remember things easily. That's why when you study, you should try experimenting on using a green or orange highlighter. Amazingly, you'll remember most of the terms easily because of the association that the striking color makes the brain recall or remember. How about you? What do you do? Do you just let things fly by in front of your face and you take in everything all at once? Establishing a priority is establishing a goal. Without a specific goal, you'll always find yourself rushing through things and you'll feel uneasy or anxious most days. Write your priorities down clearly and ask yourself over and over, what do I value most in my life? Eventually, you'll know the answers and the writing would divert your brain into a more positive keynote. Second step is monitoring. Just like what you did with your heart rate before and after exercise, monitoring how you actually spend your time on a daily basis is a healthy step to take in managing your stressors. What do I mean by this? You should have a daily log of your actual time expenditures. Allot a daily journal for yourself and try to practice logging in what you did for the day and how you spent your time. This way, you are able to see and track back if you are still on the right path towards the priorities and goals you have set for yourself. Allotting at least 10 to 20 minutes per day to log in all the details of your day helps you to express your emotions creatively and keep you straight up for the next days to come. Are you forgetful? Or do you have a habit of forgetting things that happened because you have so much going on your plate? A daily log could also serve as a good reference, especially when you are very forgetful. Logging where you spend your time and how you actually spend it can help you in living a stress-free life. Third step is for you to analyze your daily time use. During this step in time management, it is important for you to ask yourself questions like, in what activities can I spend less time on? Or, what can I do to reduce the time spent in these activities? Maybe you spend time surfing the internet a lot instead of getting a good night's sleep. Maybe you spend more time watching TV rather than exercising. How do you use your time? Are you using it wisely? Or you're just letting your day go by without giving it deep thoughts? Analyzing how you spend your day is a good step in making sure that you are always productive, that everything you do has a purpose, and that your day has been well spent accomplishing your priorities and goals. Last step and the most important of all time management steps is for you to make a schedule. Knowing what to do and when exactly to do it allows you to enjoy your life more. As a result, you get to meet more priorities and you get to spend more time doing things that enrich your life and others as well. You can either write your schedule down on a paper or you can use technology to guide you in planning your day and the days to come. When you schedule your time, you become more flexible and you allow yourself to have some time for other spontaneous activities. Aside from this, you can also find the time to spend more time with the people you love because you already know what to do and when to exactly do them. Those are the 4 easy steps to help you manage your time wisely. I mentioned a while ago that time management is an art that requires mastering. If you have not done this in your entire life, it will be a struggle and overwhelming at first. But eventually, you will be able to get the rhythm of your time and you can schedule things for yourself wisely. These things should, at the most, help you in dealing with the stressors of your college life or your life in general. Developing this habit at the earlier stage of your life will definitely help you when you start working or entering the world of pure adulthood. Time management for me is the most important key to unlocking a stress and worry-free life. As a student, I hope you get to imbibe this in your life. Part of the time management is allowing yourself to have fun on occasions where you badly need it. Just like kids who need to take a break from their schoolwork through playing, you also need that time for yourself. I tell you this, you are never too old for games. Even if you reach the age of 70, playing is the secret to keeping your spirit young and your mind ready for new challenges. Setting aside time for recreation, leisure, and play are crucial parts of an effective time management. If you know when to do your priorities and you have already set goals for yourself, then it would be very easy for you to find the free time to explore about things you've never thought of exploring. What is free time? Recreation, leisure, and play. Are they one and the same? How are they different? What activities can you do during these moments of your life? Free time is basically the time that you don't commit for work or other duties for the day. You can call this your me time if you please. Girls go to the salon to have their nails and hair done, while guys probably spend most of their free time with their bros. Whatever it is that you want to do it in your spare time. Do not deprive yourself of this very crucial break because eventually you'll get burnt out from the stressors of your life, especially now that you're busy studying. Recreation, on the other hand, is something that you do that is purposeful. It is something that would help you recreate yourself, amuse you, or divert your attention from the daily grind that you do. Maybe you can explore the world of fitness as a recreational activity. You can go take a long walk, jog for 30 minutes, head on out to the basketball court and shoot some hoops. Or maybe you can go to a tennis or badminton court to play some racket. Recreation is more of a meaningful time that shifts your attention and focus into a different avenue in your life. While leisure is almost the same as free time, but unlike free time that focuses more on extra hours, leisure is something that you fit into your schedule because you want to do something for fun and it could also be beneficial to you. Leisure involves going for a stroll in the mall, window shopping, having some drinks with friends, catching up with your loved ones, and or maybe taking your dog for a walk. These are the things that you want to do and some possible habits that you fit into your schedule to break the monotony of your strict schedule. While play is something totally different, it is something that you do on your own free will. It is intrinsically rewarding and a self-absorbing means of self-expression. Play gives you a sense of freedom or escape from life's normal rules. I personally call this time as a cheat day or cheat moment. I have found the benefits of play when I had to maintain a strict diet for my weight category in judo. I assigned Friday afternoons as my playtime or my cheat day, where I eat anything I want, drink whatever I want, and go wherever I want. It was rewarding. It was a short break from the monotony of strict diet and exercise. Play gave me a chance to reset my mind into doing the tasks I have to do. How about you? What do you consider as free time, recreation, leisure, or play? Always make sure that in planning your schedule, you incorporate these things so that you have the time to enjoy, relax, and most especially unwind from your responsibilities and your stressors. These things are all contributors to wellness because of its capacity to reduce your distress and give you a sense of meaning and purpose again. A little bit of the bad stuff is sometimes good too. It is human nature to experience boredom and monotony, which is why you need to find something thrilling to do all the time, something new and something out of the box if you must. Now that you know how to handle your stressors by plotting a schedule for yourself, let's try to explore how social support can be of great help in dealing with stress. Ever heard of the cliche saying, "No man is an island"? Well, it is also very much true when you are under distress. Do not seek to be isolated, but rather find this opportunity of negativity to find positivity from good people that are surrounding you. In this part of the lesson, you will learn how social support can be an effective avenue for you to remove the stress in your life. What is social support anyway? Basically, social support refers to you seeking people for help, and in the same way, people also may come to you for it. We need the company of each other for us not to feel that we are left out or we are isolated. Social support refers to any behavior that assists another person in addressing a specific need. Sometimes, during the most negative situations, we get to test those people who will be with us until the end or who will not leave us hanging somewhere in the middle. Social support, together with proper time management, will help you get past your stressors easily. Seeking help is not a sign of weakness, but rather a sign of courage that you are indeed willing to solve the problem. You can get your social support from your family, friends, other relatives, colleagues, and a personal confidant or your best friend. To whomever you seek to ask help does not matter, so long as you have an avenue where you can vent out your frustrations or your distress. What are some of the different components of social support you may get from people around you? The three possible components of social support are informational support. This is where you get tips, strategies, or advice from someone or a group of people to help you get through your ordeal. Second is material support. This is where you get a direct assistance from a person wherein he or she gives the help in the form of a tangible object. The best example of this is when you ask someone for a loan. And the last component of social support is known as emotional support. This is where you get encouragement or sympathy from someone to help you get through your challenge. All three components may come at the same time in a particularly stressful situation. Social support is very important in stress management, and it may not only come from people, but also from other sources, like your furry friends or pets at home. During stressful situations, these babies can be a good source of energy and happiness. Social support is a type of stress management technique that has actually been linked to faster recovery from stressful situation. But here's the thing with this type of stress management technique. You need to remember that for you to be able to gain good support from people, you must also strive to develop quality relationships with several individuals in and out of your circle. You may not know when help would come and in what form it will take. The best way is to always make sure that you are building harmonious relationships with people around you. This way, when a challenge arises, you have someone to run to and they'd be very much willing to extend their hand for help. I hope you're still with me, and the information you've been getting on stress is something that you'd truly remember. At the end of this lesson, there are some free websites you can visit to measure your overall stress levels in terms of dealing with it personally and where your stress levels currently stand in comparison to worldwide statistics. Anyway, we are almost done, and in this part of the lesson, we will focus on different coping strategies that people do when they are faced with stressful situations. Coping, by definition, is a person's constantly changing cognitive and psychological efforts to manage stressful situations. It is a stress management technique all innate in each of us. This is our body and mind's natural way of protecting itself for it to survive. If we do not have the capacity to cope with stressful situations, we would have a lot of unresolved issues within ourselves. These issues that have been left unresolved for a long period of time actually poses the greatest physical and emotional danger in our overall wellness. Aside from this, if we are constantly bombarded with issues that we have left hanging in the air, we also pose a great threat to carrying over negative vibrations to other people in our lives. We will never get the chance to build strong relationships if we keep staying in this vibration. The idea here is for you to get the appropriate coping technique suitable for you so that when you are under distress, you'd be more able to recover quickly. Now, how do you cope? What are some techniques for coping? In this part of the lesson, you might identify some coping strategies that you've probably been doing for the longest time. The whole idea is for you to identify your coping strategy and think whether it is still best for you. This way, you get to experiment on other coping strategies that might be more effective in reducing your stress levels. There are actually different coping strategies, and these are problem-focused, emotion-focused, and appraisal-focused coping. Other coping strategies can bring a more negative effect, like avoidant coping and distorted thinking. I hope that in this part of the lesson, you get to identify how you cope in stressful situations. I also hope that you will be able to determine how else you can apply different coping strategies in your life when you are faced with different challenges. Imagine yourself in the giant maze of life. The best way out of it is to always move forward. Problem-focused coping is focused in the what, where, why, and how questions. You dwell and focus in solving the problem and identify ways on how you can get out of the maze you are currently in. Problem-focused people are more of the optimists who always find opportunities in situations where their backs are already against the wall. At times, problem-focused people attract the same wavelength of crowd within their circle. This way, they get to brainstorm ideas on how to solve the problems that they are currently facing. Problem-focused coping uses the mind's ability on how to figure out solutions to problems. The most basic problem-focused coping is the activities that you do in school. In order for you to pass a particular subject, what do you do? Do you study or you just sleep it off? If you are problem-focused, you are that type of person who is always on to figure out the solution to the problem. You never stop until something gets fixed, and always you find it in your heart that there are always answers to your problems. Problem-focused coping often entails thinking outside the box. Your ideas are not confined in the general solution, but rather you find extraordinary ways on how to get things done. Are you a problem-focused person? Do you use this technique in coping? Or you always find yourself as the victim of situations in your life? The second type of coping strategy is known as emotion-focused coping. This type of coping involves focus and positivity. Emotion-focused coping is a strategy in coping where a person regulates his or her emotions based on the current stressful situation he is faced with. Often, these people who have this type of personality hold their composure pretty well, despite the distress that they are in. Are you reactive when stressed out? Or do you weigh your emotions and feelings before you start to find out ways out of that stressful situation? Emotion-focused people are usually the ones who avoid conflict. As much as possible, they level out the exact emotion they are supposed to do when in distress. They achieve this through constant mindfulness. Mindfulness is a state of the mind where you are in total control of your emotions and actions on a conscious level. Meaning, each action you take has already been thought through. You are aware of every thought, word, and action you take in your daily dealings. This is indeed a very hard challenge to do, especially for short-tempered people. Mindfulness is a complete state of focus, and it can be achieved through relaxation techniques like deep breathing, prayers, meditation, and positive thinking. Here's a quick tool you can use to manage your emotions. Try spending at least 5 to 10 minutes a day in nothingness. Bask in the ambience of silence and do this on a daily basis. Find a chair, a floor, or any comfortable place where you can sit or lie quietly. As you do this, slowly feel your body feeling a sense of relaxation. Try breathing through your nose and exhaling through your mouth, just like the activity we did earlier. As you do this, focus on the plain nothingness of the moment. This is a quick technique in emptying a busy mind. You might fall asleep in the process, but just let things be. Your body knows more than you do, and it will do what it needs to as the given moment passes. Give it the chance to feel what it must, and always make sure that you are in tune with your breath. Breathing and watching your breath is a good step in mastering mindfulness. Doing this can actually bring good benefits to your physical body. Recent studies have shown that proper breathing can actually lower your blood pressure and reduce stress-inducing chemicals circulating within your blood. Again, this type of coping strategy is known as emotion-focused coping. I hope that you find this simple breathing technique helpful whenever you are in distress. We are now down to the last coping strategy that you can possibly apply in your life, and this is known as appraisal-focused coping. This is a method of adapting to stress that is based on changing your perceptions of stress and finding resources or means of coping. Appraisal-focused coping usually works best with the other types of coping because in this technique, you're restructuring the way you think. You never assume on how events or things would end up, but rather, you restructure your thoughts and you look at things on the bright side. This is known in psychology as cognitive restructuring. Personally, I find this coping strategy to be the hardest form of coping. This is because in this situation, you're actually trying your best to turn your tables around. You are trying to do the impossible of turning your gloomy page into a sunny and bright one. Appraisal-focused coping is a hard strategy to master, especially when you have been used to negative thoughts. But in mastering this coping strategy, you can turn every stressful situation or negative vibrations into a positive and more pleasant conditions. Ever been caught up in a stressful situation and you couldn't help but think of the worst scenario in your head? Aside from thinking negatively, ever drowned yourself in liquor or alcohol because you were problematic? Or you might have known someone who smokes whenever he or she is feeling stressed out. These kinds of coping strategies are the ones that can be destructive, and these are distorted thinking and avoidant coping. In this form of response, you don't think things through, and you find temporary solutions to possibly solve the problems that you are facing. Both of these coping responses can do you harm, especially when life and death situations are in your hands. But people are actually like this in most cases. It is easy for us to assume the worst in things before we think them through, and it is easier for us to find temporary fixes before we do something to fix the problem. You need to avoid this type of thinking and this type of coping strategy, because in the long run, they can become destructive. They may possibly ruin your relationships and everyday dealings with people. Aside from this, your chances of feeling more stressed out might arise when you keep on avoiding the problem. Both of these things should be highly avoided, and as much as possible, you need to always find the solutions to your problems no matter how complex your situation is. Now you know the different coping strategies. I hope you were able to identify which ones you use in times of stress. I also hope that now you are more aware, you can also improve the coping strategies you personally use in your life. Remember that avoidance is not the key to solving any problems. The key to stress management is selecting coping strategies that are specific to addressing the different stressors in your life. Yes, selecting is the operative word. You need to be flexible in times of stress. You need to adjust how you feel and how you should react to stress when you are faced with it. Because at the end of the day, the only person responsible for yourself is you. And the only way that you can solve your problems is by facing them head on instead of running away from them. Now we are down to the last part of the lesson for today. How does exercise or regular physical activity contribute to relieving stressors in life? Though you may sometimes find yourself on the go most days, it is very much important that you still fit regular physical activity or exercise in your schedule. This way, you are ensuring a life that has less distress. In this part of the lesson, we will take a look on how exercise can affect your overall mood and disposition. I will also try to suggest ways on how you could possibly include this in your schedule and how you can actively maintain it in your daily routines. As I've been mentioning in the earlier parts of the lesson, the body is a machine that has several processes occurring within it every second that you breathe. Going back to this, I'd like to introduce to you the chemicals known as endorphins and cortisols. Both of these chemicals are produced by the endocrine system. The triggers come particularly from the brain, where it sends signals on how much or how little these chemicals will be produced at given situations in your life. These chemicals or hormones are products of stress response that you experience every second, and they only vary in the actual timing that they occur. Endorphins are usually known as the happy hormones, while cortisols are known as the distress hormones. Basically, when you are elated, happy, and enthusiastic, your brain sends signals to your central nervous system, these feelings, and it manifests in your external environment through a smile, a giggle, or a laugh. While cortisols, on the other hand, are produced within the adrenal glands, the glands located on top of your kidneys. These hormones are triggered in response to distress, where it functions to increase your blood sugar and suppress your immune system. Do you still remember what I've mentioned from the previous lessons, that the body naturally produces steroids in certain doses? Both of these chemicals are steroid hormones that trigger specific feelings or emotions that are needed in a relaxed or stressful situation. Here's a better picture from which these hormones come from. The response that we feel towards stressors in our lives came from these parts of the endocrine system. An imbalance or the absence of these chemicals within our bodies will cause abnormalities in our stress response. These steroidal hormones not only gives us feelings and emotions, but they also serve as our body's protective mechanisms, especially when we are in pain. The brain is the organ responsible for controlling or regulating the amount of production of these hormones within our systems. This then gives us the chance to react to stressors we face every second. Now, what do these chemicals have anything to do with exercise? We will look into it in detail in a short while. For now, I want you to watch this very short clip on the feeling of distress. I hope you had fun watching that classic short episode of Mr. Bean taking an exam. That was a perfect example of feeling in distress comically displayed. Anyway, going back to our lesson, physical activity has everything to do with the production of these hormones. The level in which they are produced can be affected by regular physical activity. That is why it is very much important that you try to fit it in your schedule. Many studies have been made on the effects of exercise to managing stress, And the studies revealed that regular physical activity can indeed help you adapt to stress. This is because movement conditions the body to function more effectively under challenging physiological conditions. Remember, I kept telling you that it is like a machine? A machine that if you don't use will rot away, and if you do use it effectively, it will adapt and function more efficiently. Continuing on that matter, research suggests that brain activity during and after exercise increases. What this simply means is that the more that you move, the more that your brain actively works. The release of endorphins within your system also increases as you exercise, while your cortisol levels drop down at its minimum. Those are some of the reasons why after exercise or physical activity, you automatically feel alive and happy. You see, you don't need any form of drug or alcohol to keep yourself active or alive. Your body only needs a natural high that you can directly take from exercise. Keeping active through movement is the best way to stimulate the brain into thinking better. So before you study for an exam or maybe prepare for a particular brain activity, try moving your body first and you're sure to get better results for it. Another factor that exercise can do in managing stress is that it can be a form of meditation in motion. See, when you exercise, you actually feel pumped up. This pumped up feeling keeps you focused in a single task, and that is movement. Jogging, walking, running, or playing other forms of sports can provide relief from stress because these are activities that are enjoyable. Aside from this, these activities provide you the avenue to forget about other things and focus more on your movements. As a result, your cortisol levels also drop and you experience a feeling of fulfillment because you were able to give off all your energy into the activity you are doing. Generally, you need to find an activity that would suit you and make you feel accomplished. It could be something that you don't normally do, so long as you do it on a daily basis. It wouldn't be hard at first, but you may find somewhere along the way that the task can actually relieve you from your stressors. It would make you calmer, more optimistic, and more energetic. Third important effect that regular physical activity can bring is that it improves your mental health. Exercise has been linked to reducing anxiety, depression, and excessively changing behaviors. With the focus on kinesthetic movements, the brain gets realigned into a new set of thinking. This then takes an effect into your reality. A reduced in stress levels through movements can strongly contribute to your overall disposition. Having a clear mind will eventually translate to mental wellness, improving many factors such as your perception about yourself. Your self-confidence will improve and you will be more relaxed in your everyday dealings. Thus, it is really important that you fit this in your schedule because being mentally balanced gives you an easier time in managing your stress levels. When you know how to manage your stressors, you give yourself the opportunity to have good command over your body and your life in general. This ends our discussion on physical activity and stress. For you to be able to achieve anything, you should always set goals that are SMART, something that is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Find activities that you love. Find what removes your stress and find a particular activity that you know you can stick to. This way, you will surely reach your goal, whether it is to lose weight, improve your endurance, and reduce your stress. SMART goals will always keep you on track and in focus. Last tip, don't forget to put it in writing. Studies have shown that the brain remembers more if the words have been jotted down on paper. This is because of the association we make and the photographic memory that sticks within our brains. Write your goals as well as your achievements, may they be big or small. You'll be surprised at the end of the day that you feel less stressed out and more optimistic about life. Before you leave, here are some free online stress tests that you can take for you to be able to determine where you fall in the stress zone. Some of the stress tests are compared with other subjects that are found all over the world. You may also find it helpful to know the fact that you are not the only one feeling the amount of stress and pressure at the moment. Try to go through the tests and answer them in all honesty. This can be of great help for you to identify what type of stress management techniques you can use to relieve you of your stressors. Lastly, don't sweat the small stuff. Remember that feeling or being stressed out is just a response of the brain, or a disposition that you have conditioned it to think.